All right, guys, welcome back to the Indy Sooner. It's your boy JP. We got Trav obviously with us today as usual. Trav, how you feeling?
Oh, feeling great, man. Been a good week. Been a real good week.
Good. And then below us, we have somebody who's been on the Indy Sooner before. He's a well-known commodity for those of you who have been with me for a while. He's like an uncle, basically, to me. My dad, one of my dad's best friends, was a scout in the NFL for 20 plus years. So we got Byron on the show today with us. Byron, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? How are you, Travis?
I'm well. I'm well. Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you.
I think my heart has finally calmed down from Saturday.
Barely, man. Barely. That's why
Yeah.
that's why I don't have any lights on in here, man. I had sensory overload in the cotton bowl, so I'm trying to come back down. So I got the lights off, I got the music off, everything like that. That I've never been in an environment that was that just insane. And a lot of the players said the same thing. Coaches were saying the same thing. It's nuts.
Yeah. I stupidly I wasn't thinking about it, but I was freaking out because we hosted a state championship cross country meet, Byron, at my school, and so that was going on during Red River. So I'm like, yeah, I'm handing out trophies, but we're on our way to Apple. Kirsten wanted to go to the Apple Orchard, and so we went with a couple friends. So I'm like, I'm driving and I'm listening to the game as it's happening, and that was when Caleb Kelly stripped the ball, and then Kennedy scored. So we're up. I remember I called Trav because I'm going nuts. We were texting. I called him. He didn't answer. I wasn't like offended or anything like that. It's not like it's abnormal. I was like, he's a busy dude. But then I thought about it. I was like, he's at the game. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, why am I calling?
Yeah, I was like,
I would have just
there's no way. Yeah, it was nuts. It was crazy because when Caleb scored that first touchdown, and like I've been, I don't know, the whole quarterback dynamic thing always just stresses me out. I always feel so bad ever since the "We Want Caleb" chants rained down. I'm like, I was at the game and I just looked at, actually I was sitting next to Tattoo. I was just like, oh man, I'm like, this is not good. Like Spencer's ego is going to take the biggest hit. And then once Caleb busted that 66-yarder, I turned to my buddy Cameron that was sitting with me, and I was like, I wasn't even as happy as I felt like I should have been for a big touchdown in a massive game. I was like, oh no, I just started thinking about Spencer. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so bad.
Yeah.
Because it was already bad, and then it was like when he takes that to the house, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, I remember tweeting out right after that. I was like, well, that's certainly not going to quiet people down.
Yeah, right.
Not that at all.
No doubt about that. But yeah, that was a heck of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation where, Texas jumped all over us, but it was two mistakes. It was one missed tackle on the outside, and then it was one block punt. So
I know Texas fans don't want to hear this, but it was a blatant hold.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it was.
I mean, Billy Bowman got
hell.
Yanked. I mean, he yanked him. He pulled him so bad he turned himself around. So
yeah,
that was terrible.
I've been talking to people about that on Twitter all weekend because they were trying to bring up the hold on the 54-yard Marvin Mims touchdown and then hold on Kennedy Brooks game-winning touchdown run. I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm not necessarily going to deny that maybe there was holding. I was like, there's really holding probably almost every play. Yeah. I was like, and there were, if we're going to be real about it, there was holding on the very first play of the game that y'all scored on.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. JP's been arguing with Texas fans all week. So
he sent me some pics and I laughed. I know that I don't have the bandwidth to argue with people, with fans. No.
Not me either. Half the time I'm like, man, what are you doing putting this fool on my timeline right now, bro?
I need to be better. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm on the ground. It's for y'all. I'm trying to clear them out for you guys so you don't have to deal with them.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I wish one would. No.
I already got half of them blocked.
There you go. There you go.
All right, y'all. Well, let's get started. Obviously, we kind of have got into it a little bit already, but For those of you guys, obviously, that probably should know what happened. If you didn't, you've been living under a rock. OU defeated Texas 55-48, and what many are calling maybe the greatest Red River Shootout of all time, which is crazy to say because I think after last year, I felt like last year's was pretty good with 4 overtime. Obviously, we let them back into it, but this one, just the up and down of it all, being down 21, bringing a backup quarterback in, him coming all the way back, the play. I mean, there's just so many plays that were made that you
Yeah.
could just point to, right? I think that's part of it too, is what makes it great. Like there are big, huge plays, momentum shifting plays that happen on both sides, and it just made it an overall great game. But obviously, we got to talk about Caleb Williams, and we got to talk about what he was able to come in and do. So, Trav and Byron, what were your guys' impression of Caleb when he came into the game?
The biggest thing to me was poise. I mean, to me, that's what stood out. Like the fumble snaps, he never panicked. When he got stuff in his face or people hanging on him, that was what stood out to me. I didn't think his throws were good. He made some good throws. He made some good reads. But if you truthfully look at it, the two biggest plays to Mims were both 50-50 balls that weren't the greatest throws. I mean, they worked out. You gave your guy a chance, so there's something to be said about that. But I just like the way he carried himself. And not to say Spencer, this is not a knock on Spencer at all, because I think he's a talented kid. So I'm not going to knock him. But that's what stood out to me, to come in that environment, not being the guy during the week of practice, and to handle yourself with that kind of poise was a sight to see.
Yeah, I think early on, even his dad talked about it, and you read some things about it. I mean, he was preparing to be the starter the day he walked on campus. Mm-hmm. He's always handled himself like a starter. Everybody that I've talked to within the program, they keep saying, just using the word special. He's just 13 is special. That's all they say. And they see it, from a different standpoint because they get to see it behind closed doors. I mean, the thing is, he hasn't played football in 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, he didn't get to play his senior year. And, with the COVID year and stuff like that, like he's not playing meaningful football. And then to come in there, I like that he keeps his eyes downfield and he gets real low. If you notice on his broken tackles, he gets real low and almost kind of shoulders. It's kind of like Kenny Brooks running. He gets the balance and he throws his way to the other side to kind of balance that out. And then he spins out of the other side. I mean, you saw it with the touchdown run, and you saw it on the broken tackle to get upfield on Mims. He's not afraid to contort his body and get out and around some pressure, kind of in a Kyler type way. Obviously, Kyler was just way quicker than everybody, but he was creative with his body and contorting it to make sure that rushers couldn't get to him. I do agree totally on the 50-50 balls. He throws those up there. He's lucky Marvin Mims is on the other side there because Marvin Mims is a 50-50 fiend, man. There's no 50-50 ball. It's 70-30 balls, 75-25 balls when you're throwing it to Marvin. But that's part of understanding who you have down the field as well. Mm-hmm. So it's not just, I got a receiver down there, I'm gonna throw it down there. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to talk bad about any other receivers. I just would rather talk good about how good Marvin Mims is that, and his body control. And there was a reason he was a freshman All-American last year. Mm-hmm. And you saw it even with the OSU game last year, how he went up and, I mean, on kind of an overthrow, and he went up and mossed a guy. I mean, just incredible. So a lot of it is understanding the weapons around you. I think the biggest change with Caleb coming in was just the threat of the run. Kennedy Brooks was a whole new running back with Caleb Williams in the game. The offensive line was a whole new offensive line with Caleb Williams in the game, simply because he presented that threat. And you saw it on both of Kennedy's direct snap touchdowns. They overload the line to Caleb's side and Kennedy's to his left, and they snap the ball to Kennedy. They fake as if they're going right. Some plays that, Kyler used to run specifically where they'd pitch it back out to him. They would do those going right. Well, then Kennedy just took it to the left, and he had great wide receiver blocking. The first touchdown was the 18-yarder after the Caleb Kelly fumble recovery. That was 18-yarder, and that was Drake Stoops on the lead block. And then on the touchdown, the 33-yarder, it was Jaden Hazelwood. making the lead block. Obviously, Drake had another great block to set the edge, and then Braden Willis was incredible to come down and get the linebacker. So Kennedy was able to split Stoops and the linebacker, or Stoops and Willis's blocks. But then Jaden was downfield. That's one thing. Jaden Hazelwood does not get enough credit for his blocking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could throw on tape and you can teach from it. It's an absolute clinic. He comes in against Kansas State and he's going bowling with defenders. He takes out 3 defenders on one block. I mean, he's constantly downfield. He's strong. He reminds me a ton of CD Lamb in that aspect.
Just getting ready to say he had a great mentor because CD was a monster.
Well, and they understand how important that is. And I think it was Drake Stoops I was talking about it. He's like, they understand, like, if they're blocking for their guys are going to block for them. They're gonna end up on the big play because other people block for them. But I think those 2 plays don't happen with Spencer at quarterback because you don't have any threat of the run. And I think specifically on the last play of the game, you saw everybody. There's 10 seconds left, and we have an All-American kicker, best kicker in the league in my opinion. And he's been money all day, and he's built for these moments. And you expect us to just get into the middle of the field, and that's why you saw Texas leaning heavily towards the middle of the field with their defenders. And if that's Spencer in there, do they call that play? Probably not. They probably do hand the ball off, but just that little wrinkle allows him to bust that out to the left. Now all of a sudden you got blockers, and everybody's coming from the other side of the field. So all you have to do is wall that off.
And Texas is gas.
Got 6. Oh yeah, the second half and that's the thing. It's they had them on the field for a lot of the time, and that's part of the reason. Like again, we compare it to last year. Last year, yeah, it was a 4 overtime game, but man, there were a lot of blown coverages. There was a lot of bad tackling. We let Sam just run up the middle over and over. Nobody was spying anybody. This time it was like people are making big time plays, like big time catches, big time runs. It's not just terrible defense out there just playing against, offenses are playing against air. You've got legitimate, fantastic, dramatic plays that are going on. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah. No, guys, I agree completely. And I think the biggest thing I took away from it, and Travis, me and Byron were talking about this earlier today. Texas probably played their best game of the year offensively, I would say. Obviously, Casey did. Obviously, Xavier Worthy did. And, I think on some of those plays there's something to be said about Jaden Davis or maybe some of the safety play or whatnot. But even still, it's not like Xavier Worthy's a scrub. It's not like, he doesn't know what he's doing. But
Xavier Worthy's their best wide receiver. I don't care what agent's out there. I mean, he's their best wide receiver.
Yeah. And they probably played the best game that they would play. And so we were talking because a lot of Texas fans are saying, man, like if we saw y'all in December again, we have your number. And me and Byron were kind of like, I don't really know about that, dog. Like, I don't think they want to see Caleb for a full 4 quarters. I mean, based on what I saw for the 2 quarters, that series held down.
Kind of my message to OU fans is styles make fights. Caleb with that running package looked like a month earlier when they played Arkansas. What killed him? I mean, that running quarterback gave them all kind of problems that game. So you can see where Caleb was be set up to have success because he can run, and the stress that puts on the defense, you've seen it before. So
yeah, I mean, we're going to run the same offense that we ran with Jalen Hurts.
Correct.
That power run game, but he's got better top end speed than Jalen, and it looks like he's got a better arm than Jalen. So it'll open up some things. And I'll tell you what, if like I said, I mean, he's going to be the starter moving forward. And, I mean, Spencer will still get some playing time. I think he will. There are certain packages.
There's going to be games where you need him. I mean, it is what it is. That kid is too gifted. So I know everybody wants to throw him away. And, he's not by any means a throwaway. That kid is talented. Like, naturally throwing the football, he is one of the more talented guys we've had. Just
of course. I mean, when you look at arm talent, that's why he's going to absolutely murder the combine and his pro day. He's going to be dropping things in buckets from 60 yards away. I think we all remember the Zach Wilson throw that everybody went crazy about at his pro day. He was rolling, he was on the move, and he threw across his body like 50 yards. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, draft him number 1!" And now he's got a pick in every single game he's played, and he can't even throw screens. Like, it's bad. So, but Spencer can do anything you would ever ask him to in a pro day. Spencer's going to put everything on the money. So that alone, people will look at that and just fall in love and say, "Oh, I can fix him." Because you get that with NFL teams, right? That maybe that college, maybe that offensive line, maybe I can fix him. I can do this. All right. I mean, Spencer's still. You said, I tried to tell this to somebody yesterday. I still think Spencer's a first-round pick, simply because of his arm talent, and simply because you look around the NFL right now, and you got all these young quarterbacks. If you're in the same division as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert or Kyler Murray or any of these guys, Lamar Jackson. I mean, you need to go get yourself a young gun that is dynamic, that can make special throws. You can't go and get, you can't go sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can't go you can't have that as your long-term option. And especially with the class that Spencer Rattler's in, it's not a great quarterback class. I mean, he was in this quarterback class when he got recruited. He was number 1 in the class then. And nobody else is really outside. I mean, guy from Malik from Liberty, he'll be up there. But once the first quarterback gets drafted, there's going to be this run on quarterbacks, and every quarterback is probably going to get drafted higher than they should. But it's because if you get that position locked in, you can be competitive for a decade. I mean, and you see that a lot with the NFC quarterbacks. You have a lot of older quarterbacks that are there. You got Brady and Rodgers, and I mean, heck, if you look over at Pittsburgh, you got Big Ben. How long is he going to play? How long are a lot of these guys going to play? And then all of a sudden, you got this young guy coming up. People are not going to be able to sit on their hands and watch a talent like Spencer Rattler just drop down. There's no way.
Because they'll believe they can tweak or work with them, and they'll have time to do that.
I don't think it's not a lot of tweaking that needs to be done. I mean,
no, absolutely not.
Pressure. I mean, it's the way that the offense is set up. I mean, the running quarterback, like there was a guy, I can't think of his name online, but he said they're playing 10 on 11 because they know he's not going to run. So they can drop that extra defender in coverage. They can rush 4, and, with the young offensive line still coming, they get pressure with 4. You could drop 7 and you make things hard, or it's a bunch of little things. I do agree with the staff on that. It's a missed protection here, a missed blitz pickup here, a wrong route here. One guy's supposed to clear out, he doesn't, so the corner drops instead of clearing out. The ball gets tipped and he's there. It's all of those little things that add up. That West Virginia pick. I mean, if he clears out, Spencer can throw the ball on a rope. He doesn't have to lob it. The safety doesn't get there. All of those little things add up. So it's not just him. And yes, is he pressing some? Of course, yes. I mean, he's been the man since he was little. So he doesn't want to get benched. He doesn't want to get pulled. So he's going to press a little bit. He's still a young quarterback. This is only his second year playing also. So, I mean, all of that, and I think the Sooner fans should treat him with the same grace they would want to be treated.
Of course.
Stuff was going wrong for them.
It's one of the frustrating things. You don't want to end up in a situation like Wisconsin ended up in. Is they ran Cohn out of town. He's now starting at Notre Dame because they went with Graham Mertz. Well, now they're sure as hell wishing they hadn't done that.
Correct.
And so that's the thing. You do this, and I honestly think I don't think Spencer doesn't transfer. Spencer can go to the NFL and be a top, at the very minimum, a second-round draft pick today. He doesn't have to play another snap. And scouts will just – I mean, they've seen plenty of tape on him. They know what he can do with enough protection and with wide receivers running what they're, supposed to be running, and running backs that can block and this, that, and the other. It's like, look, they've seen what – there's a reason that he was, talked about being a top 5 pick going into this year. It's not like they hadn't seen him play. And like I said, I don't think he's not going to transfer because I don't think he has anything to gain. And he has a lot more to lose. I think you could go be a first or second round pick immediately without ever playing another down. And obviously, he will play more downs. I'm 100% belief that Lincoln Riley will figure out a way to use packages for both of them. There's a reason he came back in to throw that 2-point conversion. I mean, he's got great relationships with Stogner, with Stoops, all those guys, and that's a play that he's good with. I mean, I had heard that Caleb wasn't comfortable with the call, and they put in Spencer to go put that thing on a rope, and he did. He put it right on his hands.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and this is I normally wouldn't. We don't do questions this early, but I just saw this one in the chat. I thought this was a really maybe a good question to ask, and somebody asked specifically for you, Byron. So it says, Byron, if you were scouting Spencer right now, how would you define what might be the biggest issue with his game this season versus how he finished last season? I'm curious to hear from a scout's perspective.
You have to take everything into consideration. So you definitely have to look at the personnel around him. Look at how defenses are playing him. They're daring him earlier. They were daring him to take underneath throws. And Nick, can you be patient enough to dink and dunk and take what we give you and go down the field? I thought West Virginia, K-State, he did that. It doesn't look pretty all the time. It's not the big sexy numbers, but like everybody said, that offense is built on running the ball, play fakes, and that's where your shot plays come from. Well, we couldn't run the ball, so there's no shot plays. So it's not all on him. So you look at all of that, and then you look at the talent. You ask questions about his leadership, how he learns, does he retain it, all of that stuff. It's not just, okay, his numbers are down, let's knock him down. You look at everything, and you find out the why. And if the why is something you can fix, then it's not a big problem. As long as it's not anything major, as long as he does the work, and he's not, as long as he puts in the work and he's passionate about it, then you're good to go. But I would look at everything that was different between the 2 years, because there's a lot of difference. Not right now, buddy. Sorry. We have four new starters on the offensive line. Even though Tyrese was a starter, he's playing a new position. So that's 4. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Well, and you also think about, I mean, Creed Humphrey is the highest PFF rated center in the league right now. You can't just say, okay, you take arguably the best center in the NFL off of a college team, especially asking what OU asks of their center. You have to be smart to play center. You have to be a genius to play it in Lincoln Riley's system. You have to be almost Rain Man to actually excel at it in Lincoln Riley's system and be a top NFL draft pick, all this, because they ask so much of the center in that offense with all their run sets that they run. And I think as far as Spencer goes, you have to see what he did, like I said, with that offensive line. You're right, Byron. You have to see what he did with that offensive line. I think something that Lincoln touched on in his press conference that I found interesting was some student asked him about his leadership, Spencer's leadership, and whether he was well liked and this, that, and the other. And Lincoln goes, well, he goes, keep in mind, I've been in a lot of battles with this guy. We've asked him to do a lot while he's here. We put a lot of pressure on him, and he's won a lot of games for us for a long time over this last year. He said he's the youngest captain that's ever been under a Lincoln Riley team. He's the youngest captain that's ever been voted by his peers as a team captain. And a lot of people are like, well, he's the quarterback. He's going to get voted a team captain. Well, not always. And also, he was the youngest. I mean, a lot of times you have the Jeremiah Halls of the world. You have the guys that are, established. They're the captains of the team. The Pat Fieldses of the world. They're the guys that are, seniors that are captains. I mean, he was named captain as a freshman. I mean, that's not common. And when you get to big programs like this, I mean, that might be common in small schools or something like that when they need a leader. But in big schools like this, you find leaders all across the team. I mean, you can be led by a fullback, you can be led by a safety, you can be led by a lot of these players. So I think there's something to be said for that too. When people want to say that, oh, he's not a leader, he's not well liked, his teammates don't like him. Here's the thing: Caleb is just extremely well liked.
Yeah,
like Caleb just gets it. I mean, you could see when they were making the circle for the golden hat, and he's just laying down in it with the horns down. Like every single picture of that guy, he's just smooth, man. And that's no fault of Spencer's. Yeah. Absolutely no fault of Spencer's. I mean, if Caleb's trajectory is towards, a top 5 pick, well, what if Spencer's a top 20 pick? A top 5 pick is supposed to be better than a top 20 pick, but a top 20 pick is better than basically the rest of the whole country. Like,
yeah.
Yep. So sometimes you just get somebody special and then they're followed up by somebody that is just equally as special with a different skill set. And that might be the skill set that you need at that given time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it just speaks overall to just how continually blessed we continue to be as Oklahoma fans, as we are arguing about 2 5-star quarterbacks. And
with another one on the way in 23.
We got another one on the way in Malachi Nelson.
God, he looks so good.
And he looks, it keeps rolling. So I should.
We can talk about that in the recruiting part. But
I should entertain questions about Lincoln Riley's QB development when we're.
That's another argument. With
number one,
Let's
right?
Leave that alone.
Exactly. So
I've seen you with Browns fans and folks.
Yeah. So keeping us moving, obviously the big news, right, today is that Oklahoma, and so what we thought was maybe Lincoln Riley, it turned out to actually be Oklahoma administration that banned all of OU media, even though it was just OU Daily that kind of did the thing that was a no-no. They banned them from anything pertaining to the football team until after the game on Saturday. So that's obviously a big deal. It's been making waves. I'm sure, sports talk shows will probably be talking about it in the morning. But yeah, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Byron, obviously, I know you have some contacts over there, OU and Trav. Obviously, I know you're really close with some people over there too. So maybe what have either of you guys heard, and maybe what are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Go ahead, Trey, because I got hold of it late, so I don't.
Yeah, it's Lincoln has had a reputation, and that's why everybody jumped on Lincoln first. Lincoln's had a reputation of being a bit prickly with the media at times. This NIL stuff, a lot of the companies, especially media companies, 247 and Rivals and those guys, got met with a ton of blowback from him, specifically not wanting. And if I'm a coach, I kind of see where he's coming from. I don't want everything in my program to be just behind a paywall, have all these players saying this, that, or the other. I mean, there's a reason Saban doesn't allow freshmen to talk. Lincoln doesn't allow freshmen to talk to the media. That's the whole Caleb Williams thing. Holly Rowe was all upset that Caleb Williams wasn't allowed to talk to the media when that's always – that goes back to the Stoops era. I mean, freshmen they don't talk to the media. So, anyways, that's why I think everybody jumped on Lincoln early, like, oh, there's got to be a Lincoln thing. But apparently Joe C. had a meeting with, I guess they had some big sit down with, the journalism school and all that, and basically just introduction, get to know everybody. And then, a week later, they're, taking, binocular reporting and putting Spencer Rattler's dad in the news and all this. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, well, that seems like good reporting. That seems like you're doing your job, right? Hey, we have our subscribers that want news. We're going to go get the news. But it was fresh on the tail of having that conversation with Joe C. and the OU Daily students. And apparently Joe C. took it super personal and made it a big deal. Hence the shutdown. I don't think that was – well, I know it wasn't Lincoln's call, but I don't think Lincoln's going to be too upset with it because I bet if you gave Lincoln the option to where he could do it all the time and didn't have to catch any flack for it, he'd probably do that too.
And our coaches have there are times during the year that scouts can come in and watch tape, but they can't go to practice. I know OU's is like the first game of the year, OU Texas, Oklahoma State, and usually there's another one where you can watch tape, but you can't watch practice. So there's some of that, but you can't sit up there with binoculars and watch a practice. There's a reason it's behind the fence. It's a competitive advantage for your school. You don't want Gary Patterson to know what you're doing. Keep him guessing. Why not make him prepare for two things so maybe he's not as prepared for one? So you can't do that because if you want him to trust you with them to give you information, you can't go and do that. So I get why me personally, I would have shut down just them. They would have been done. And then I still want, the other people who are obeying the rules to come. I would let them come. But, you just hate that, they had to be first and had to break the news in that way. It wasn't upfront. And to me, it's just not done in good faith because there's a reason there's trees, that black fence, there's security, that people can't stand the tape stuff for a reason. So you definitely don't want to give your opponents any kind of intel before a game, especially when you're trying to win a natty. And on the Holly Road thing, I think that's an archaic rule. These kids are different than us. No different from me because I'm a lot older than y'all, but these kids grow up with social media. The media coverage is native to them. They know how to talk to the media. A little 2-minute interview after a game, that's not going to hurt him or you. All the SID has to do when the clock hits zeros, hey, we're not going to talk about a quarterback controversy at all. Ignore that question or say you're not going to answer it. That's me.
Yeah, these guys, especially guys like Caleb. He had a Sports Illustrated feature,
following him around.
Blog.
Yeah,
that was like a thing. They've had video. They've been on video. They've done all this stuff. I do think there's a lot of media that always has to break the news. They always want to be first.
It's the TMZ syndrome.
Yeah, but especially when you're installing new plays and new packages that they haven't seen.
Yeah.
There is no tape of Caleb Williams running this offense. Outside of a half at Texas. And that's the thing. It's like while you're installing new plays and a new offense and everything like that, and obviously you're not going to run the whole offense that you would want to maybe run next year or something with Caleb because you can't install a whole offense in a week. But, so you're already going to have kind of a trimmed down version of the offense that you eventually want to run with Caleb. So you want to give some of that up? You want to give some of that practice up? No, of course not. Because you're already going to be limited a little bit with your concepts and everything, and you're going to run everything out of specific run sets and things like that. So, you'll get a lot of pre-snap stuff that looks the same. But at the same time, it's absolutely a competitive advantage. And I know a lot of people are, they'll argue that and say, there's nothing that, they can watch in practice that's going to help them. That's simply not true. It's just simply not true. There's all kinds of stuff you can watch in practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest caveat. Obviously both of you guys hit on it. Like Trav, obviously you hit on they're journalists and they're students and they grow up in this, this age of where, we do have to break the story for them. So I think you can understand it from that perspective. Some people are giving them kudos for that, but then you do have to understand from the other side too. There's a reason you had to go up on a building and have binoculars, right? There is a reason for that, and no matter what, if people disagree with the way OU closes their practices off and whatever, it's been done like that for mostly forever. Since Stoops. Obviously, Lincoln is a little bit tighter than Stoops was, but it's not like they're not used to it. I think it's just this is such an unprecedented situation that it just piqued the interest of people. And so I think you have to understand that piece. But at the end of the day, like we're all saying, from Lincoln's perspective, and Lincoln wasn't the one who made the call, but it just crosses the line. So I think that it'll just be a story for a day. I think that maybe at the end of the day it'll end up being better because the football team can focus on football and what they're doing and let everybody else talk about all the outside noise and whatnot. So, so moving on, we're gonna hit the OU TCU game that is going to be at 6:30 Central Time this Saturday, 7:30 Eastern Time for all my guys on the all my guys on the East Coast. That's me. One, I don't know if anybody else in here in the chat is on Eastern Standard Time as well, but I'll be tuning in. So we got the night game because we won. Right, we talked about that. Saw the Big 12 set that up. Like, hey, if you're gonna win the game, you're gonna get the night game. If you lose it, you're gonna get the 2:30 slot, and that's what happened with Texas ultimately. And so, looking at Oklahoma and TCU, one of my biggest things was, and it's very similar, honestly, to Trav, what we talked about last week with Bijan Robinson. And I said, I said, if we hold him under, did I say 120 yards last week? Then we win.
Yeah.
And we held him to 100. Well, held him. It was 130, but there was really just the one big run, and then I think we did a good job corralling after that. Now, if you would have told me last week that Kenny Brooks would have had 200 what was it, 14 yards, and Bijan Robinson would have only had 130, I would have been like, and again, no disrespect to Kenny Brooks at all. No disrespect to Kenny Brooks at all, but Bijan is just, he's that dude. He's special. You know what I mean?
Bijan's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but so my question was, what is the number of yards that the Sooners need to now hold Zach Evans, who is special in his own right? What do they need to hold him under Saturday? Because obviously Max Duggan is a pretty good quarterback. You know, he's okay. He's not amazing, but Skylar Thompson wasn't either. He let us up. Our pass defense hasn't been amazing, and obviously Max Duggan is going to give that quarterback read option component that we need to prepare for. And yeah, I just want to know your guys' thoughts on that, and if you think that we need to hold Zach Evans to maybe a specific thing, or if you think they're going to try to use Max Duggan's arm more than they would Zach Evans.
Anything under 5 yards a carry would be. You don't want him to get to 7 or 8 yards a carry. If you can keep him between 4 and 5, I think that's a successful day. The quarterback, I'll take my chances with him throwing versus running because I know he almost beat us 2 years ago running. So, I mean, the Evans kid is special too. So we're gonna have our hands full. But I would say like 5 yards a carry versus any yardage. Yardage doesn't tell the whole picture because there's a lot of garbage yardage, and I'm like when it comes to defense, I'm more about points and how you are in the red zone because you can give up a ton of yards and don't give up points. So.
Sure.
That's kind of how we were in Indy, bend but don't break, and make people have long drives where they're more apt to make mistakes and then hold them to a field goal and let Peyton go score a touchdown. So that's the stat to me is yards per carry. Let's keep that down under 5.
Yeah, I honestly I would love to force Max to throw it on us. I think while I think Bijan's only slightly better than Evans. I think Evans is a stud. I mean, watching his high school stuff, following his commitment and everything, I was like, when he ended up at TCU, I was like, dang. I was like, man, I wish he ended up in Georgia or somewhere. They've got 100 backs that'll kill you anyways, so you already know what to prepare for. But he changed that entire team whenever he committed to TCU. So with him, I'm like, he's gonna get his, but I'd rather load the box. And I know that Jaden didn't have a great game. I know that Pat's kind of given up a couple throws. I know this. I mean, I've been watching the same team that you guys have, but I mean, I watched them play against Texas, and they just made mistake after mistake after mistake when Texas was trying to take away the run too. And it wasn't working great. Zach was still gashing him a little bit. But if you force TCU to try and get creative or to try and throw the ball, you're going to have opportunities to capitalize on mistakes. I think if we can get him to throw the ball, we'll have this should be a game where we have at least a couple picks. Hopefully one is as dramatic as DJ Graham's. I'd like that. I need another T-shirt with him on it. But no, it's. I think I kind of like where Byron's coming from on the yards per carry thing because it does matter, and he's been, I think, through the first half it was something like 7 or 8 yards carry that he was ripping off, and you just can't have that because we've struggled on fourth down defense so much that we can't allow them to look at 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, 4th and 1s, and stuff like that because we haven't shown that we can go off field right away. So we need to get these guys in 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s that turn into 4th and 4s and 4th and 3s that they may not go for.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think when we get them in those 4th down situations, like we saw kind of early on in the first couple games, there's been offenses that have been willing to go for it on 4th down. And so we got to get off the field too, because early on, Trav, we talked about all the time how we just didn't have a ton of possessions. And that was a piece of Spencer too, right? That we've talked about before. It's like, offensive line, but the offense really wasn't getting that many possessions. And I'm sure that TCU will probably take the same approach that everybody except for really Texas took, because Texas, they're Texas and they feel like, they have Sark and they felt like, we can actually match up with these guys. And hey, like they did put a ton of points up. So they weren't trying to march up and down the field. Now, my question is, and we could talk about this another time because, I should have asked this in the last segment is, I don't know. Personally, I don't know why we were in so much man. Maybe it was because of Bijan. I could see that if we're going to stack the box, and that's why we were in it. And I get that. But I don't know. I think maybe that's what you just got to live with Texas is you don't want Bijan to go off on you. And you got to live with Casey making the plays that he did and getting beat. Maybe
and a lot of the issues in coverage were technique stuff. There was – I can't remember which one, but 7 – I mean, Worthy is screaming off the line of scrimmage. So he's like 10 yards deep. It's not going to be an out. It's a go or a post. He checks for an out. I'm like, no, son. He's going. It's stuff like that, getting your eyes in the wrong spot, and then you lose somebody behind you. It's not a lot of them getting just like physically beat. It's little technique stuff that I think that, like Coach Grinch alluded to after the K-State game, it's like it's the little stuff. You're not lined up where you're supposed to be. Your eyes are not where you're supposed to be. I see what he's saying with that. It's a lot of that stuff.
And Latrell McCutcheon's coming in. He's coming in as a true freshman, Yeah. And I tell you what, I know Xavier Worthy's a true freshman too, but that kid's special, man. That's an All-American type guy, and there's a reason. He's Texas's best receiver already. He's going to be until he decides to go to the NFL. So I don't care who they bring in the next couple classes. Xavier Worthy's special. So that's the thing. That's a tough matchup, man. You put a true freshman on that guy, and he's already like he wasn't starting early in the year. I mean, we've been rotating our corners and whatnot, but he's been rotating. And then Woody goes out. I mean, I would have loved to have Woody Washington on him all game. That would have probably made a little bit of a difference, but. Some of those guys are just going to make big plays, but no, I agree. I trust the coaching staff to get them coached up. You've got the talented guys. I mean, Latrell's a long guy. He's 6'1". He's, he's got all the tools. And I think.
Even the last touchdown, he's in good shape. Find the ball and make a play on it. Yeah. He was in really good shape.
He was there.
Yeah.
He was right on top of them.
When you see stuff like that, it's not a talent issue. It's just little technique stuff that, like you said, the young guys were playing with guys that, zero hurting is a big deal. It's a lot of Stutzman. I like that kid.
Everybody likes that kid.
Those guys, getting those guys back will definitely help. So.
Well, and also guys along the defensive line. When you look at Jalen Redmond, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
A corner's best friend is a pass rush.
Yep.
So if they can really get some pressure on the quarterback, and you get a guy either throwing up ducks while he's getting hit, or just not being able to get the ball off at all, as we saw with Casey in the second half. That defensive line showed up and showed out in the second half. I think we gave up 136 yards in the second half or something like that. I know we gave up 10 points.
Yeah.
But 10 points after giving up that much by halftime.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's kudos to Coach Grinch too, because they made the adjustment to take away the outside zone.
Yeah.
And it was a wrap. You know, he, like you said, he popped that one run in the second half, but once they took away the outside zone, they really had trouble.
Yeah, and kudos to Casey. He hung in there and took hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
And still, you know, was slinging it, but he's gonna be good too. I mean, it's obvious now, especially that he was the right choice over Hudson. You know, it's tough. You know, it's tough to go in there and stand up to our pass rush and continue to get a hit again and again. So I gained a lot of respect for Casey Thompson.
No question. His dad not from the same hometown, so he's all right with me. I like that. I like him a lot. So as a person and as a player, like it was a perfect day for me. He had a really good day and we won. So that's a win-win for me because I'm a big fan of Casey.
Yeah. They're a great family for sure. Okay, so we said we need Max Duggan to put the ball in the air more than Zach Evans is really going to run. I think Grinch will probably plan for that. Obviously, I don't think TCU's offensive line is the best. They're not always necessarily big, especially on the line, on both lines, offensive and defensive line. They're not always huge. But again, they're typically well coached, I would say. Now I expect our defensive line probably to have a big game. So if Max Duggan does get in those drop back passing situations, we gotta pressure him for sure, speed his clock up. On the other side of the ball, I think all of us here are probably just going to go ahead and say Caleb's probably going to start on Saturday. I personally, I think so. I don't know if you agree with that or if y'all agree with that. I would say that he would give us the best opportunity off the bat. Now, if Spencer could play, and Lincoln even said that before, obviously the media availability was cut. You don't know. But I can't see him going back to Spencer. And Byron, we talked about that. I think Trav, we kind of talked about that too. And more than anything else, I think even Lincoln Riley's heart that we've all seen in recruiting, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. I think that too is going to be a big factor because I think if he puts Spencer Rattler out there, I mean, the reaction from the fans cannot be good, in my opinion. Now, you can say if it's the best thing for the team, Lincoln Riley has to do that, and I agree. But I feel like the best thing for the team moving forward is Caleb and having a quarterback that has the athleticism he has, and that's going to open up your run game because that's what we need, especially with the offensive line that's struggled to date. And he's going to be able to get out of a couple more situations than Spencer probably would. And I said to Byron, hey, a 5-yard run and slide or run and tumble for Spencer, maybe a 20 to 25-yard run for Caleb because he's just that much more explosive. You know? That's my opinion. Let us know what you think about the ball on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that Caleb's going to be the starter, and Spencer will probably get a few plays, but Caleb's absolutely going to be the starter. One of the staffers told me early in the year, he said, "Hey, if Caleb gets on the field, you're going to have a really hard time pulling him off. Because if Caleb gets on the field, he's too good. You won't be able to get him off the field. You won't be able to reason with yourself, with the rest of the staff, with anything like that to say that's a guy we need to put the bubble wrap back on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been the understanding seemingly around the program is this guy gets in a game, he's going to light it up. So. But I think it's such a delicate situation that they were like, okay, if we can keep winning with Spencer, we already know we have Caleb back here. If we get in true trouble like we were against Texas, they go ahead and bring Caleb in, and it's all she wrote because now we're sitting here talking, okay, that one game, now Caleb's the starter over the incumbent, over the older kid, over the Heisman Trophy favorite to start the year, over a top, projected draft pick. He's automatically supplanted that guy in one half of football. So I think you have to. I think look at the way that the team reacted to him, the team responded to him. Even when he was telling people going up and down the tunnel before halftime, said, look, we're going to win this. And he had 100% belief. And one thing that they said on the podcast on the prayer, I think the Jeremiah Hall and Braden Willis podcast, they talked about how Jaden Hazelwood came in the locker room and said, "We're going to win." They walked up the tunnel. And obviously everybody knows that the Cotton Bowl only has one tunnel. Well, OU had to wait on Texas to walk up the tunnel, and OU ran up the tunnel. He's like, they're walking, they're comfortable, they're happy with themselves. We're run up the tunnel. We feel, and when we were at the game, I mean, they're coming through obviously the OU side as they're going in the tunnel, and we were loud. I mean, we were so loud, and we felt it. I mean, they're amping us up as they're running into the locker room. They're pumping up the crowd. You could tell not a single person in that locker room didn't believe that they were going to win that game despite being down 18.
Yeah. And I think, that's the thing that's the biggest piece, and hopefully that we can carry into Saturday as a fan base is just continuing to rally behind the guys and get them riled up and get that defense ready to go. Because that is going to be nice for them to be back home after being on the road for a little bit. Obviously, you have 4 straight home games, so that's nice too. But again, It's going to be good to get back to Norman, I'm sure, for a lot of those guys. And hey, the fans may be juiced when Caleb comes back out, or Caleb comes out for their first drive too. So we'll have to see how he does.
Oh, the fans, it will be loud.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not too jacked. Whatnot.
And whoever's quarterback, I mean, we've seen TCU give up rushing yards, so let's take it to them.
Yeah. Kennedy should have another.
Run it with a purpose.
And we'll have Marcus Major back with a whole other week of practice. I think we're going to see what Lincoln Riley's wanted to do the whole year and really get running the ball downhill. I mean, really the best teams that Lincoln's had always throw off a run sets, throw off a play action, everything like that. You're going to see that, and I think we're going to see a completely different offense. When you see a completely different offense, that defense is going to start playing differently too. That's just how it works.
Yep. I think that was a big part of it too. They fed off of what they were doing Saturday. They saw Caleb make a few plays. They start moving the ball. They got juice, and then it just snowballed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, so guys that are here, this is probably one of our biggest live streams today, which is amazing. We're just gonna continue to ask you guys to keep asking your friends to come back out every Wednesday. We enjoy doing this. We got just a couple minutes left. We're going to go over recruiting, and we'll have a quick time of questions and answers. And so for those of you who maybe showed up late and weren't here at the beginning, again, remember Trav, who's at Travis Cole on Twitter. He's a businessman, entrepreneur, OU football aficionado. He lives in Tulsa, owns 3 restaurants. Got the Cardinal Club. We got Trey's Bar and Grill, and then we got Brick Brothers, which is in Bixby. So, make sure if y'all are in the Tulsa area, y'all go and check those out and support his businesses. And then below, I have Byron, who's like an uncle to me, one of my late father's best friends, who actually, believe it or not, was up here working for the Indianapolis Colts for basically his entire tenure. And so he was a reason I got to go to a lot of Indianapolis Colts games when I was a kid. I got season tickets, and I got to see the Peyton Manning era basically because of that guy down there, which I'm eternally grateful for. But he is a former NFL scout, was for 20 plus years. And so when we go into that question time, as you hear those things, feel free to ask him any questions. Feel free to ask Trav any question, who Trav is connected like nobody almost I've ever seen to the Oklahoma program. And he's done some good things lately for them, and he's gotten to cook steaks at Lincoln Riley's house and whatnot. So, there's some questions you guys can ask him as well. And I'm just, a lowly peasant who, just is here. So, but no, for real. Let's get into recruiting. Obviously, Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, the number 3 recruit, according to 247 services, and I think Rivals had him at like 60 or something like that.
Rivals had him at like 39. It was like On3 had him at 3.
Nice. That
247 had him at 3. I think ESPN had him at like 6. And then I was like, what are you doing, Rivals?
Right. Make no sense. But basically should have been a consensus 5-star defensive tackle, and the biggest defensive tackle recruit since Gerald McCoy for Oklahoma. And so I think that just shows where Grinch and specifically Jamar Cain and Calvin Thibodeau, what they're doing on the defensive line. And I think if you were to look back a couple years ago at OU Twitter or just the OU fan base in general, they weren't happy with Calvin Thibodeau. And I think he's kind of proven his mettle, especially in the last couple of years, and with being able to get a guy like Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy in the bag. I think he shut a lot of Sooner fans up.
Yeah, it was interesting coming down to OU and A&M. I mean, the haters will say, "Oh, well, his parents went to OU, so he was an OU lock." No, that's not the case. His dad works in College Station. Like he grew up in Lakeland, Florida. He goes to Lakeland, Florida, which is a University of Florida stronghold. The Pouncey twins, Chris Rainey, a bunch of Florida standouts have gone to that high school. So to see how Lincoln has been able to get into Florida, especially with this 2023 class coming up, and 2022 and before, obviously with Mario Williams and Marquise Brown and all these guys, but to get into Florida is so big. And this guy, I heard a story about him today, Gabe Dindy. He went to one of the recruiting satellite camps, whatnot. I think it was in Jacksonville, and they were doing everybody's measurables, right? They were testing everybody, regular combine style. And they, out of 500 kids, he had the highest vertical jump, and it was like 34 and a half inches vertical, and he's 6'4", 280. I'm like, out of all the athletes there, 6'4", 280, he's got the highest vertical. And that's just absurd. I mean, the kid's just a freak athlete. He grew up, his dad had him in martial arts. He had him playing multiple sports. He said he uses that. A lot of his body control, a lot of his footwork comes from martial arts. What's really cool is Lincoln did a great job just really making it a priority to – Lincoln does a really good job of making the actual person a priority as opposed to just the football player. He talked to him about it. They're very spiritual. Obviously, dad is a pastor. That's what he's going to be in College Station doing. They made sure to change the schedule at Lincoln's house, where they typically do the recruiting breakfast at Lincoln's house at 10:30, but they moved it so they could all go to church together. He talked to Lincoln about, hey, my son, his spirituality comes first. So is he going to be able to, go to worship on Sundays, or are you going to have his Sundays all booked up? And Lincoln said, no, his Sundays are his, his and then the families, whatever they want to do. So Lincoln did a fantastic job with him from the jump. And obviously we heard the quote about how he acts as almost a recruiting coordinator where Lincoln talks to the kids. It's not, at these other schools, especially with the move to the SEC, we're going to see the recruiting staff grow. I mean, Alabama's got a massive recruiting staff. They got a whole department. OU has 4 people, but it's with Chip kind of moving to player development. You've really got Megan Mez. You've got Annie Hansen, who's the associate athletic director over recruiting operations. And then you got Drew Hill, who is the best in the business at what he does, the director of player personnel. He's fantastic. But you got, I think Lincoln likes to keep it small because he can talk to all the kids and make them a priority. And it's not some grad assistant that's taking them on a tour for the first 2 days and then they see Lincoln on their way out. So I think that's important. And I'll tell you what, man, this guy is the real deal. I mean, it's different. When you start landing these guys, that's when you can say Oklahoma's defense is back. I mean, you just don't get these guys. If you'd have said in 2018 that we were bringing a 5-star, defensive lineman, no, like nobody would have believed you.
Nobody.
And here we are in the 2022 class, and we're still in great shape for Marvin Jones Jr. too, who's one of the top, defensive ends in the class. So he's fantastic. He's out of Heritage Plantation, which that might sound familiar because that's where Brandon Ennis plays as well. Brandon Ennis, obviously elite, number 1 overall wide receiver in the 2023 class that is currently committed to Oklahoma. That guy's a stud. So hoping we can bring him in the fold too. Derek Moore has been tweeting him a bunch because Derek Moore is another top 100 player on that defensive line. That 2022 class along the defensive line could have Chris McClellan, Gabe Dindy, Marvin Jones Jr., and Derek Moore. That's the best defensive line class in the country that's signed. And if you would have told anybody in 2018 that OU would have signed the top defensive line class in 2022, when 2018 ends, you're already recruiting these guys in 2019. I mean, you're recruiting these guys young, as sophomores, sometimes as freshmen. So, those guys, you were recruiting them while they saw our defensive deficiencies. So to get them in the fold in the 2022 class, if we land MJJ and Chris, which I personally like our chances with both of those, man, you're looking at quite the revolution of defensive line. And Tibbs, man, him and Jamar Kane have been leading the way like madmen. Really impressive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've done.
And now we're getting true SEC guys. Those are the guys that don't the Bama, LSU, Georgia. Those are those type kids.
Yeah, if you look at I think it's the top. It must be class of 2022. If you look at the state of Florida and look at where the top 10 kids are committed, I think Bama's got 2 of them. I think all the Miami, Florida, and Florida State combined to get 1 of them. That's the thing. It's like, we get those guys. We could legitimately. I still think we do finish with a top 5 class in 2022. Mm-hmm. If you finish with a top 5 class in 2022, have the best defensive haul under Lincoln Riley under 2021, and then 2023 is off to a historic start with 4 or 5 stars already in the boat. Geez. There's not a single person that can say, "Oh, y'all won't cut it in the SEC." How would we not cut it in the SEC if we've out-recruited, most of the SEC?
That's hilarious, too, because it's basically Georgia and Alabama, and every 5 or 6 years LSU. The rest of them are
exactly
average. So
exactly, and that's the thing. And we're going to see A&M drop off because this whole, oh, man, if you want to stay in Texas and you want to play in the SEC, well, now you can go to Oklahoma, Texas, or Texas A&M. Yeah, absolutely. They definitely do that.
It is what it is at this point. Everybody's got to change the math on how they get down now because of the NIL rules. So, kids are sitting out.
Yeah, there was a recruit's father. He told me that A&M straight up was offering cash for them to go. And I was like, oh, my God. Straight up told me. And it just met me. And he was like, yeah. He's like, A&M, that's what he's like, man, Jimbo's got to cut that out, but they're going to get caught.
Man, that's nuts.
And I don't want to sound like the paranoid, or the excuse football fan that's like, oh, well, the only reason they got that guy is because they paid him. Sometimes that's just true.
Absolutely.
It's sometimes just true.
I've talked to several coaches that were recruiting Cam.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, he got paid.
I can't imagine. Oh, got paid big time.
That's hilarious. But no, for real, guys, I'm excited about and the defensive line, the trenches in general on both sides of the ball, right? That's where you start with your football teams, and that's been something that have been missing from Oklahoma for years. And I think we're getting those guys. And even if you look at some of the guys we have, obviously the guys we have now, even some of the young guys like a Reggie Grimes, that's an SEC dude, and he's coming on lately. Yeah. But then you also got Ethan Downs, who's just a homegrown kid, but that just wants to play for the University of Oklahoma so bad, and just will give 100% effort. That it's things like that make you excited about the defense and where they're going. We're gonna get the offensive guys. It's been like that. It's been rotating, but now it seems like, hey, the defense is gonna start to go that way a little bit too.
We've got another 4-star corner coming in actually to the TCU game.
Oh yes, we've got safety, right?
He's safety athlete. He's the number 4 athlete in the country. He's the number 89 overall player.
And we want him in the top 3, right?
Ezra Thomas. So he's coming on a visit, and then obviously, we've still got Gentry that's going to announce on Monday. I'm going to be at that commitment. I think RSJ might come with, but he was messaging me the other day about it. But I'm definitely going to be at Booker T when that commitment goes down. And then it's exciting because I really don't think this 2022 class is going to have many more offensive players added to it, unless their offensive line. We could bring on one or two offensive linemen. You look at like a Cam Dewberry. I don't think we're 100% out of it with Devin Campbell yet. You look at like Malik Agbo and guys like that, but they're all extremely highly rated guys. Well, if you add, like I said, two more on the defensive line, and then an elite player in Gentry Williams, and then on the back end you still add like an Azariah Thomas or something like that, you're still. I mean, do you know how wild it would be to be in the top 5 without a quarterback in the class? Like, and no wide receivers. Like, we have 0 wide receivers in the class right now. You could be in the top 5 with 0 wide receivers and 0 quarterback. Like, what? That's seemingly impossible. But I mean, we go back to something we've touched on about how the wide receiver core right now is so confusing because for years we had the obvious number 1 and obvious number 2, or at least the top 2 were, you've had Sterling there, you've had CD there, you've had Hollywood there, you've had guys that were obvious first round picks. You've got guys there now. Like, I assume it's Mims now. Like, I still don't know who our best receiver is. I'm partial to Jaden Hazelwood because I prefer the big, strong possession type guys that typically catch everything you throw to them and can block, can muscle you, can put a hand on your helmet and put you in the ground. I prefer those kind of guys typically. But, I mean, Mims is crazy up with the 50-50 balls. Mike Woods is an elite cat. But we'll still have a lot of those guys. We still got Jalil Farouk and Mario Williams and Cody Jackson and all these guys. So I'm not too worried that there's no wide receivers in the class. We might take a transfer or something like that. But with having no quarterback and no wide receivers in the class and still maybe ending up top 5, you realize how good all the other players in the class have to be for that even to be possible? Like, that's absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah. That's absolutely nuts. Hey Byron, tell Noah I said what's up. That's a little man right there that popped in there for a little bit.
He took off. I see if I can get him to say hi.
All right, Bryn sleep too. You're muted.
Oh, she's watching the WNBA game.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Byron's daughter, she's gonna be a beast, man. Basketball.
Oh yeah,
she's pretty good. She's pretty good. She's going into her sophomore year, so
yeah, she's a little bit of baller. How tall is she?
5'10"-ish.
Yeah.
Nice.
She's gonna be nice. All right, guys. Hey,
got some athletes in the fam.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, got some athletes in the fam. I'm not the best athlete in my family, unfortunately. I was for a little bit, and then my sister took over that.
Yeah.
So, she living her best life at OU right now. Except
good for her. Is she going to the meetings? Did she go to the meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
She called me crying the other day because she was like, we ran like 6 400s at practice because they got a new sprinting coach. They let go of the old sprint coach Trav last year, and so they got a new one, and she's been wrecking them so far this year. So
brutal.
But hey, so we got about 5-10 minutes. Hopefully closer to 5. If we can answer these ones, and I can get them up quickly. Guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I already have some questions that we have queued up as well. And, Trav, Byron, if you guys got any questions for each other specifically, go ahead and ask them too. Feel free, ask questions all around. Oh, man, I had them pulled up. Let me go back. Good. Okay, one question that we had that pulled through is about recruiting. Because what happened to Amari Abor? Trav, you know anything about that?
Yeah, I was told it wasn't a great fit on the Champion Barbecue visit. Didn't really vibe with, the staff, other players that were there. And I think on a player like that, it's not worth continuing because players like that, they take a lot of resources, take a lot of visits, they take a lot of phone calls, they take a lot of that. And with how personal the OU staff is with making sure they shoot those texts out, those phone calls, especially with the actual position coaches, the coordinators, and the head coach, it wasn't worth. Once they understood that and they were like, look, we're probably going to do our own thing, it wasn't worth chasing them down.
Yeah, I get that.
And we had other we had other guys that ended up being priorities that were 4 and 5 star guys. So
yeah, that makes sense. Another question we had that was on Twitter specifically comes from our good buddy Gmo. He says, do you see Lincoln Riley and the staff's recruiting style changing in any way with OU heading to the SEC? His example will be maybe bigger or faster running backs, bigger or faster wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that we need to do anything different on the offensive side of the ball.
I think, as far as us, we already are kind of an SEC team anyway. Like, our offense was predicated on power runs and the guard tackle, the counters, and we're not a air raid team at all. Even though people try to portray it as that, that's not how we were at all. Lincoln likes to run the ball. Offensive lines have been big. We may need I think depth is the biggest thing that we need. You look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, they're deep, and we're not yet. You see that in the secondary now. A couple of guys get hurt and it makes things a little wonky. So I think we need depth, but as far as style and personnel, no, we're good especially on offense. That's what you want.
I think you bring up a great point with depth. I think part of the reason that Alabama specifically is so deep is because when you go there, if you're a 5-star and you don't see the field in the first year, you understand it's because the guys in front of you are going to the NFL soon. You're there because you're gonna win a championship because mathematically every class since Saban's been there has won a championship. So you can sit there and buy in and say, okay, cool, this is all part of the plan. So I think OU specifically on a lot of the depth side just needs to have postseason success. So players can come in and say, hey, you know what? We're going to build this depth. We're going to do this. You've seen us have postseason success. So just stick around. Don't get mad and go into the portal because you think, you got lied to or something. So I think that's important as well. I think Bama has an incredible advantage in recruiting because they got young guys that they don't have to play right away because they're blessed with guys that stuck around in the first place to win their title. So even though they put guys in the NFL every year, they're never just totally thin anywhere. Their running back room's getting a little thin right now, but they're never that thin anywhere because you had guys stick around that waited their turn because they knew they were going to compete for a title. So I think we have to deliver in some of these postseason games, and then you'll start to see that because then you'll really be able to see. And recruiting's all about spin too, right? So, if you go into a guy's house, you say, hey, I know we haven't been getting it done, but you're the missing piece. You are the missing piece because look how close we are. You can't do that if you're getting, curb stomped by LSU in 2019. You can't say you were the one guy that would have saved us because the only guy that would have saved us was Jesus. and he doesn't have any eligibility left. So,
no doubt.
So it's that's the thing. You have to at least be competitive enough to where you can convince these recruits that they're the ones that are going to take us over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are both great points, guys. I get annoyed when I got a lot of friends that are SEC fans and they, well, once you come over to the SEC, it's going to be. I'm like, you know what? We will compete. I don't know what you think this is. We're Oklahoma.
You can ask Texas that, but it's fair to ask us.
We've been about it for 100 years. So
right.
I don't know if you're new here, but
right. I don't know where you've
been about that life for a cool century. So
when you've won more than half the titles that the conference has ever had.
Yeah, exactly.
Take that up with the rest of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. All right. Hey, so we got one more question, one for each of you. Trav, the question for you is from T Light from Twitter. He asked about the the bourbon release of the year.
Oh yeah, he had me with the barrel proof EHT or the Russell's Reserve 13. I've actually got a bottle of Russell's right almost within arm's length. It's good stuff, but I'm just so I'm so biased towards EHT. I think everything EHT does, they put out. EHT small batch is incredible. That's kind of one of my go-to daily drinkers. EHT single barrel is fantastic, but that EHT barrel proof is one of the best bourbons I've ever had. Their 4 grains incredible. Yeah, so that one would probably be my bourbon of the year. Okay, I see you. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, here's the tip. You want to put some whiskey in a decanter, you want to put a bourbon in a decanter. You don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want a decent daily drinker that you don't necessarily want to show the bottle off to. It's definitely the Bottle and Bond. Oh man, I've got some in the decanter now. I just keep on throwing away the bottle. Early Times Bottle and Bond. Early Times Bottle and Bond. Get you one for $20. Everybody's got it. You throw that into the decanter. You have somebody over. That'll do the trick.
Good stuff. Byron, the question for you was looking at Oklahoma's offense this year. Realistically, how many draft picks do you see from your perspective, from your scouting perspective? And if not, do you think most of them will come back or go into transfer portal?
I don't know who is draft eligible. I know 54 Tyrese, they'll probably go. They'll get drafted mid rounds, mid to late. What is Kennedy a senior?
I thought he was a redshirt junior.
I don't know with him skipping last year. He may leave if he keeps putting up numbers. Gray is a change of pace guy. I need to see a little more from him. The quarterback, if he decides to go in a draft, he'll get drafted fairly high. Even though, no matter what people think about him, he's just too talented. I don't think they have a lot of. There's not a lot of draft eligible guys. I don't see a lot of guys leaving either.
Yeah, they got Kennedy as a junior because he got there in 17 and he missed with a shoulder injury and redshirted. So
okay,
he was 28. He played 2018 and 2019. 2019 was his sophomore year. Opted out of 2020. So now he's a junior.
Okay.
I think Jaden, Theo, and Mike Woods could all leave. I don't.
You haven't seen enough,
I don't think Jaden or Theo will leave. I don't know. Is Mike a junior or is he?
They haven't put enough on tape. I think he's a senior. I thought.
Well, Mike is. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is why
I think he'll get. I mean, size. You haven't got to see a lot from him yet. But he just the way he looks.
Open a lot.
He runs anything at the combine, he'll get drafted because, I mean, he is. He's built like a Greek god. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and we talked about kind of as the world turns towards Caleb. I mean, Caleb, he's a heck of a recruiter, and the number one recruiting that he has to do right now is talk to every defensive player that is draft eligible, but has another year eligibility, and try and get them to come back. And it's interesting with the receivers. I mean, you got to look at, you think Marvin Mims is happy that they're making the switch? I'd say so. I mean, you look at guys like Jaden, and you look at this, like they want to see what a year is like with a run game that actually opens up, so they can actually get some one-on-one matchups, that they can actually put film. Put out tape that, hey, this is me on a one-on-one matchup, and it's not just me playing against cover 2 and trying to get something short and run with it. You know what I mean? So I think that, like I said, I forget who I was talking to. It was somebody in the program, but that's what I told him. I said, man, because Pat told me that everybody on the defense is leaving, and this was after Western Carolina. But I'm like, if Caleb is as smooth as everybody thinks he is and as we think he is, I'd like to see how many defensive players he can convince to come back and play another year with him.
They need to put up numbers too. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So last question, because Tattoo's getting in civil comments because I wouldn't put his question up. Is Caleb Williams actually Superman? I don't know. No. Some people may think so. After
he doesn't need
Roy Williams is Williams is Superman.
Correct. Just let Caleb be Caleb. Continue to grow. He's still a young guy. You saw that in the game. There was one on the sideline. He was a bad miss. He missed in the end zone a couple of times. Let him grow. Let's not put it all on him now. Continue to surround him with a good cast and let him do what he does. He's got a bright future, but he is young, so he's going to have young moments. So,
the rest of the world will put enough pressure on him. Facts. I remember I texted his dad, Caleb's dad, Carl, after the game, and I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like, man, I'm so happy for you and your family. I can't imagine how excited you are right now. And he's cool. He texted me back, whatnot. It was cool because I just can't imagine. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I can't imagine as a father seeing your boy go out there and just completely take over, a massive historic football game and just put on a performance for the ages. I can't imagine seeing my son do that. That'd be outrageous.
Yeah. He's gonna be fine. Like I said, he'll be more than fine, but let's let him do it. Give him some grace and let him grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And build around him so they can all grow together.
Yeah, and he's done a good job of running that Sooner Summit. He's done a good job of making sure that people are coming with him. He was replying I was almost here, and he was replying to Marvin Jones Jr. About coming here and whatnot. Like, he's still on Twitter. He's on Instagram. He's trying to get a good team around him because it's the same thing that Malachi is doing with the 2023 class. He understands, man, if you want to win a title, you can't just do it with a quarterback. You got to have everybody.
Yep. Well, hey, guys, we appreciate you guys being with us tonight. Thanks for everybody that showed up. Trav, Byron, appreciate you guys being on. Obviously, we love to have anybody else on we can. And so, Byron, thanks for taking some time out of your night. Tell the fam I said hello.
Will do.
Tell Tamika I said hello.
Will do.
To see you soon. I'll make sure I get down to Frisco when I come down in November, maybe potentially.
Okay.
We'll try.
We'll meet up somewhere or something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, get it checked out. And hey, if you're ever in Tulsa, give Trav a shout. You gotta try one of his restaurants. Absolutely. I've still ain't been yet, but I've heard good things.
I wish I'd have known when I was traveling. Sheesh. I love food, so
time to get back in the game, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. But don't act like you don't know me if I pop up now.
No, that's not my style. That's not my style. You wouldn't make it very far in restaurants if you act like you don't know people.
That is correct.
If anything, I do the other way around. I act like I know everybody, just in case.
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, I appreciate both of y'all. Thanks for being here again. Have good nights. Get some rest.
I'll do the same. Kiss your bride for me, sir.
I will. Kiss the bride and the baby. Growing healthy. We're grateful so far. So we're at 15 weeks. So we'll know when we get back from Oklahoma. We'll get to know whether it's a boy or a girl. So that'll be
okay.
Exciting.
Sleep now.
That's awesome.
Sleep now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's never the same. It's great. It's never the same.
That's what I've been told. So,
and no matter how much I tell you until you go through it, you can't imagine.
I know it.
It's great though. It's great. Don't it's work, but it is so fulfilling. Like he said, having a kid in the Cotton Bowl, watching my daughter play and go through that and starting to get looked at by colleges, it's crazy.
Yeah. Man, just fills you up with joy, I'm sure. But it's gonna be a crazy time. April's gonna be fun. So, but hey guys, appreciate y'all. Appreciate
Absolutely,
everybody that's
man.
been in here.
All right.
We'll see most of you guys next week. Boomer.
Sooner.
See you guys.